Ever since the most recent patch, PvZ has changed in a very big way, and I'm here to explain to you all the newest trend in Protoss vs Zerg, initially introduced to us by Hero. It is going to be the low gas, fast forward base, mass gateway unit style that Hero has played in the GSL and I'm bringing to you. So we're starting with a standard 1 gate expand build order. If you're not aware on how to play a 1 gate expand build order, I recommend you take a look at the replay here that is in the description and check out the first 2 minutes. Study that hard because this is the standard in basically every matchup. However, I'm going to take the 2-minute mark, 2:10, as my starting point because this is where changes truly start happening. Every single chrono boost in the early game is going to be sunk into our Nexi. So we get 3 extra chrono boost on Nexi, Nexis, and not a single one on Adepts. We're also going to be keeping our Adepts at home for the most part. We get our Stargate before we start our Warp Gate as well. That allows us to chrono boost out a quicker Oracle and get some faster air superiority, have something to deal with links as well in the early game. The moment our first Adept finishes up, we're going to immediately start our second Adept, and like I said, we get these extra chrono boost on the workers. The moment our Stargate finishes, we will start an Oracle, and once we have chrono boost available, we will chrono boost that Oracle. For now though, a third pylon before a second gateway. This is pretty important in order to not get supply blocked, and here we start our Oracle immediately. Now, the chrono boost isn't available immediately. That is completely fine. You'll need to build for 3 or 4 seconds on that Oracle, and then you will get it. The moment afterwards we get 150 minerals, we start a gateway on the low ground to complete our wall. Every map in the current map pool is going to be capable of being walled with 3 3x3 buildings. Now this wall does look a little bit scuffed. Most other maps it's going to look a little bit more pretty. After our first Oracle finishes up, we rally that Oracle towards our third base location. The reason for this is because we want to keep our third base location safe and we want to get our third base up as soon as possible. We build a 4th pylon over there as well as a nexus, and we want to be building the pylon in such a way that an Adept can escape on both sides. While we do that, we put a probe on hold position on one of the sides, so if 10 links show up, this probe that is over here will block these links initially, and there will need to be some manual target fire out of the Zerg. While this is happening, we can of course use our Oracle to pulse or beam down these Zerg links. So behind this, we're getting our second Oracle. We chrono boost that second Oracle as well. And once money allows it, we will start getting our third gas over here. Now do note, I'm saying third gas, I'm not saying third and fourth gas. That is because we're only going to be working with a single gas on our natural for a very long time. Once our second Oracle finishes, we get to make a decision. We can either move across the map with both Oracles, leaving our third base a little bit exposed, or we can send one Oracle across the map for scouting and minor harassment while leaving the other one at home. This is your decision, and I would recommend switching it up so you can't be hard countered by your opponents. We get another pylon at our third base, and once gas allows it, after we build our third Oracle, we will start a Twilight Council as soon as we can. Twilight Council has the priority over the Forge, but we also want to be getting a Forge. The Forge builds a little bit quicker than the Twilight Council, so it can be delayed by 3-4 seconds, and they'll still finish at the same time. We're trying to harass with the Oracles if we can, but the absolute key, and this really is key, is to not lose these Oracles, because these are vital for scouting, but also for stopping a lot of Ravager pushes and even Baneling run-bys. Basically anything that the Zerg can throw at us that doesn't have anti-air might be dangerous with this build order, and we need the Oracles to stay alive. If you have the choice between killing 5 workers and losing your Oracle, or not killing those 5 workers and keeping the Oracle alive, I'd recommend always keeping the Oracle alive, because it's such a vital tool in the mid-game. Now, this is where things truly start getting switched up. So after our Forge and Twilight Council, we immediately add a bunch of gateways near our third base to, well, fully start walling as well, but also to increase our production. So I go up to 5 gateways here initially, and then after I throw down these 5 gateways, you see that the money works out perfectly to get both +1 and blink. I want to chrono boost both of these upgrades once, but from this point on, all of our chrono boost is going to be sunk into our Twilight Council rather than into our Forge. This is very important. After we do that, we get a 6th gateway as well as a battery here at our 3rd base, and we're going to start our Stalker production at this point already. So we have very little gateway units. We try to cut those out as much as possible, and we immediately start building extra units. Purely Stalkers at this point. Basically all of our gas is going to be used into Stalkers. Don't build sentries. Sentries heavily cut into our Stalker count and will not be useful for the style that we are playing. Now, at this point, this is around the timing where Zerg usually takes a 4th base. However, if at this point Zerg hasn't taken a 4th base yet, you can consider adding 2 extra gateways before expanding yourself. Just in case, as like a safety measure. If you see a 4th base, however, I'm completely down with taking a 5-minute and 20-second fort. There's no issue here whatsoever. Continuing chrono boosting on Blink, and like I mentioned, the moment we have gas available, while continuously building workers obviously, we're going to build as many Stalkers as we can. This also is going to sound kind of stupid, but this is a timing for us to move out with this army onto the map. I like to leave some units over here at my fort base, probably my Adept, build a battery over there as well, and I can always warp in some extra Zealots if I do end up getting attacked here, and we will start marching towards a fort base with this army. Now, this looks unsafe, but because we have the oracles flying above it, it's actually relatively safe. If the Zerg player decides to build units right now, and he builds a crap ton of units, we can just go home and we'll be ahead economically. If he doesn't build units, we might be capable of cancelling a fort base, which would be absolutely huge, because then we also would be ahead economically, because we're up a base. So either way, the situation is going to be good. Obviously, if the Zerg cuts the perfect amount of drones and builds the perfect amount of units, it's going to be good for him, but this is not an unbeatable build order. It's very tricky for the Zerg to make the correct call here. I'm very serious about it. This is not an easy build to play against. Now, as we take our 4th base, we're also going to be taking our 4th gas, and our 4th gas should finish at about the same time as our Blink. The moment our Blink finishes, we stop with our Stalker production. This should be somewhere between 12 and 16 Stalkers, depending on how tight our macro was. And we start Charge. Once again, Charge has priority over our Forge upgrade. We do not continue Stalker production so that we can also afford our +2. And we will start warping in Zealots at our 4th base or at our 3rd base, wherever you want it to be, while continuously chrono boosting Charge. While this happens, we want to saturate our 4th base and add about 4 to 5 extra gateways on this base as well, can provide us with a wall. And at the same time, it allows us to just have bigger reinforcements later on in the game. Continuously warping in Zealots, getting a robotics facility as well, and still chrono boosting that Charge. +2 and Charge will not finish at the same time. That is fine. That is a feature of the build, not a bug. We're still trying to keep the map control with these Stalkers. I will show an example game after this as well, where I can kind of show what I mean. While continuously warping in these Zealots. And the real timing of this build, and I think the biggest power spike here, is the moment Charge finishes, which is about 750, between 745 and 750, depending on how well you chrono boosted. You're going to have a bunch of Zealots. You can send your Zealots on one side, your Stalkers on another side. You can also split up the Zealots, so you have like 8 Zealots with your Stalker army and maybe 8 or 9 Zealots on the left side. From this point on, you can continue expanding. You get a Templar Archives because you've been saving a lot of gas, and you can also add extra gases on your 3rd, your 4th, and your natural, and kind of transition into a more normal game, or you can go to a higher base count, stay on low gas, and continue throwing gateway units at your opponent. I'd always recommend building a Prism with this build because you have a very high gateway count, and with a high gateway count and a Prism, you can do a lot of damage in main bases very often. So yeah, this timing is extremely powerful. Like I said, I like to follow this up with Storm, so I usually just warp in a couple of Templar at home safely behind the wall, maybe with a cannon there as well, while I keep map control with my massive gateway army and expanding towards a 5th base. Now, if your opponent is going heavily into Link Bane or Ravager Link Bane. This type of composition into Storm will be great. If there's going to be mainly roaches into Lurkers, you might want to add a second robotics facility as well. Start producing a lot of Immortals. But because you have map control, it's really difficult for the Zerg to attack you. So this is the basic build order. I now want to show you guys a real life example of a game that I played recently in an EPT Cup. Alright, this is my game that I played against Elaser, and here I just kind of want to go over the Oracle movement, the general unit movement, what we're looking for. So, as you can see, I'm being very kind of patient and not very committed at all to killing workers. I've currently killed 0 workers whatsoever, and I don't really care about it. I just care about gathering information, making sure that links can't head towards my third base, and I'm trying to, if I can, deny at least a little bit of creep. Because when you're playing Blink Stalkers, the main threat from the Zerg is going to be the speed of their units and catching up with the Blink Stalkers. So the more creep you can deny, the better it is. Now you want to be doing this in the least committed way, which in this case is going to be the triple Oracle. So that's what I'm doing. If you're planning on clearing a little bit of creep, I'd always say to just use a single Pulsar Beam to clear up all the tumors. Kind of like this. That way you save the most energy possible, allows you for constant revelations and later on using them in the push as well with those initial Stalkers. So I'm already kind of getting set up. I want to be scouting at around the 5:20, 5:30 minute mark, trying to figure out if there's going to be a fort base or not. You want to be throwing revelations on these hatcheries as well, as I see these drones pop. That kind of is a big tell that there's not going to be a push coming towards me anytime soon. And as a result, I feel pretty comfortable building that fort base, adding extra probes to my bases as well. This is exactly what I want to be doing. Now, you see, I'm still kind of wanting to deal some damage if I can. Once again, I'm not wasting any energy. I'm not really committed to this cause. My fort base goes down, and I start adding more and more Stalkers into the mix. And then around that 6-minute mark is usually where you really want to start moving out. And this really is a key timing, as you can see. Right now, my opponent is on maximum 3-base saturation, 67 workers. That means all of the mineral patches will be fully saturated. All of the gases on the first 3 bases will be fully saturated as well. And every drone after this is going to be for that fort base. So if I can delay the saturation on the fort base while I am also building my own fort base and I can force out a lot of units, that is good. We see Elaser is building 8 extra workers, and as a result, he currently has absolutely nothing. He has 0 units ready. He has 13 links, while I have 9 Stalkers and 2 Adepts. Now, luckily for him, he also has a bunch of Queens, and that is helpful. In this type of case, if you're a safe player and you want to be sure that these Stalkers stay alive, you keep the Oracles in this position. However, if you want to mix it up maybe sometime in the future, you can decide to send the Oracles in towards a third base, in towards a natural, or even in towards a main base, because the Queen count there has been so diminished that taking out a couple of workers might be a realistic play. You can do this while doing this initial push, so you push forward over here and then fly your Oracles through the left side into the main, while your Stalkers kind of retreat off creep to the watchtower. Please be very careful with this initial push outs while you don't have blink, but once your blink finishes and the link count isn't that large anymore, usually you're going to be just fine. And the plan from here on out as the Protoss is to just kind of be trading, well, not really trading, it's just to be using your blink so you can save the Stalkers while taking out your opponent's units. So you see, when nothing is in range, I'm targeting down Queens, but once these units come in range, I start fighting the links, because links are easier to target down, while Queens most likely I'm just going to be wasting transfuses. However, if he just fights with the Queens, eventually he will lose them all, so he needs to send these units forward every once and again, and that's kind of what is happening here. Once you have a big enough Stalker count, and there's not a lot of creep, one of the things you can do for sure without any major risk is sending the Oracles towards the right side, or you can send them back towards your own fort base to try and defend any potential run-bys. This is the one real weakness that you do kind of have. During this initial push-out, you're weak to run-bys, and you will need to most likely use defensive warpins. I did not have an available pylon for that over here, so a run-by actually could have been really painful. Luckily, I do realize that, and I send my Oracles home. Now, let's not forget, though, that the moment Zerg sets up a run-by, it does leave them more vulnerable at home. They either need to cut in their already low drone count, or they need to just survive purely on Queens and hope that their run-by somehow forces you back. So I'm adding the extra gateways. We can see that the worker count is relatively close at this point. He comes in with the run by. I just warp in one Zealot over here. 3 Oracles will deal with this pretty rapidly. And at the same time, I'm just kind of microing my Stalkers over here. Now do note that I'm not, I repeat, I am not hardcore engaging on creep. I'm staying on the edge of creep, making sure the creep can't expand, and just targeting down low HP units, or at least easier to target down units than the queens. And in this case, the roach is the lowest HP unit here, plus the extra damage the stalkers deal to them. That, of course, is the main priority. So I'm just sniping a couple of queens here. The roaches move forward. I once again blink off of creep, and I return to my watchtower. Especially now that my oracles aren't here anymore, I do want to be a little bit careful, or this type of play could really hurt you. I continue teching into +2 and into charge here. You see my charge, I think I said in the initial replay, between 7:45 and 7:50. I'm about 10 seconds late. Here comes the first run by, and at the same time having some charge lots in the main base. It does get spotted, but the beauty of this is that he needs to send roaches towards the right side to deal with the zealots. If he have +1 zealots, sending over links to deal with that is a very inefficient play. So you know that a roach count that will have to match your zealot count will be sent towards the right side. That also means that majority of the links are going to be left most likely on the left side to deal with your main army. So I would like to have a couple of zealots in that army as well to deal with those. It is difficult at this moment to build a lot of banelings for the Zerg. And it's also not that useful because most of the time they're going to be fighting off creep. Centrifugal hooks might not yet be done. And this is generally a good area. It's important to not commit into bigger armies. And you're kind of always juggling with these two things. So you're deciding, hey, where is my opponent's army bigger than mine? And that's the side that you don't really attack into. It is always easier to do the aggressive splits over the defensive splits. Because at any point, I can rotate all of these zealots towards the left side. And if Eleazar has 15 roaches on his side of the map on this right side, this army is just going to die. Even now, he already probably split up slightly too many roaches. And because my unit count is so large, because I have a lot of gateways, I have a very good mineral eco, as you can see, making 3.8k minerals a minute at this moment. It becomes really difficult for him to have proper splits. Another great thing is that if he becomes aggressive with just roaches, a single warp in can often turn that fight around. So Protoss really has a massive advantage here. On top of that, of course, having oracles that can deal with anything that doesn't shoot up in an extremely efficient manner. This just makes life very, very easy for the Protoss player. I do have to admit, I was a little bit late with my Templar Archives transition in this game. I was late with getting the extra gases, but at the same time, I'm trading in a pretty okay way. I've taken out every single queen of my opponent, and I'm destroying this right side army. So I'm losing this left side fight, but I'm winning the right side fight. And don't forget, if you're equal in supply against a Zerg player, 99 out of 100 times, that is going to be quite okay. Now, the moment he tries to attack, there's another thing you can do, by the way, if you're really desperate or you're really afraid of dying, is you can build a Void Ray. Void Rays are great tools against mainly roach armies, and they can really help you win one of the sides. And that's kind of how you need to see it. It's a balancing act between the two different sides that you're fighting on. You never want to be, as a gateway man, just fighting on one side with all your army, because that doesn't really work against Zerg most of the time. Banelings are just too good in that situation. You want to be split up. That's the entire point of this style. Now, he decides to completely engage into me, and this naturally becomes an all-in because of that. But because of my massive reproduction abilities, I mean, I have 13 gateways at this point. He is never going to be capable of killing me. I just get a couple of warpins going. My +2 is about to finish up. Meanwhile, I'm in the main base as well. I'm trying to make sure that my zealots target the links, the stalkers target the roaches. It actually becomes a very basic game. If anyone has played like maybe Warcraft 2 or something like that, similar to that, you know, very little units. And just make sure that the correct units are targeting the correct units. Multitask, the moment your army wins, just send it in to deal some damage. Continue expanding towards a 5th, continue upgrading. Some people say they even like adding a second forge when they play this type of style. I personally find that a waste because I think that Storm is an upgrade that has a bigger impact rather than, for example, Shields would. But then again, I'm just one player and different Protosses, different opinions, of course. Now just blink down, Blink Stalkers have so much flexibility. It's just great overall. I mean, I clear these Zealots. My opponent has a way smaller army and just kind of win the game. And do note as well that during this entire game, the creep has been very, very little. And that's for two reasons. One, you have the triple Oracle in the early game that can deny creep. And two, you have the 3 Oracle, 10, 14 Stalker move out in the mid game that can deny a lot of creep on the fort base. Now, of course, Elaser isn't Raynor. And against Raynor, this is going to be slightly harder, believe me. There is levels to this. But Elaser is, in my opinion, one of the greatest Zergs currently in Europe. Probably top 3, top 4. So yeah, it's... this should be possible at most of your guys' level, is what I'm saying as well. I doubt most of you will find a Zerg like Elaser in the loading screen. So yeah, that's actually just going to be it. I mean, I just move a little more from this point on and win the game. If you enjoyed this guide, please feel free to leave a like. I know this is not the content most of you are looking for, but I enjoy making these. And if you do like them as well, please let me know. If there's any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments down below as well. I might look at them and I might not. I'm not sure yet. I'll respond to a couple. Thanks everyone anyway for watching, and I hope to see you all next time for a new video. Thank you and bye bye.